How are you today, Miss Jones?
Not very good. The doctor just came in and told me that my daughter April has to have more testing done since her genetic testing last week. He said that there's a possibility that April may have the mutation for the Fragile X syndrome.
Mrs. Jones, I'm so sorry. That must be very difficult news to receive. You must have so many questions.
I just don't understand. I know I received genetic testing at 13 weeks when I was pregnant with April, but nothing came back positive and everything was fine then.
There are many different types of tests, and testing for Fragile X syndrome isn't universal or common. Certain types of tests only test for an abnormal amount of chromosomes. With Fragile X syndrome, there'll still be 46 chromosomes, but there's a mutation on the FMR1 gene.
What's the FMR1 gene?
I was just going to explain that to you. FMR1 stands for Fragile X mental retardation 1, which is the gene that codes for a protein called the Fragile X mental retardation protein. This protein is essential for normal cognitive development and female reproductive function.
So this happened because of my genes?
Not necessarily. Fragile X syndrome has an X-linked dominant pattern of inheritance. This means that the disorder gets passed on from an X chromosome, not a Y chromosome. This does not allow for a father to pass it on to his son. Since you had a girl, both you and your husband contributed an X chromosome to her, so it could be from either side. In order to confirm the side that it came from, you'd have to look at your family history or get genetic testing done. This can be a challenge to understand. Do you get what I'm saying?
Kind of.
Hold on, let me show you something.
Okay.
So here, this is saying if you were to be the carrier of this genetic disorder, that you would have a 50% chance of passing it on to your kids with each pregnancy. So it would only express itself as a carrier state in females, and it would be an affected son if you had a male.
Okay.
Your other two children could be unaffected and not carriers of this disorder.
All right. I understand that much better now. Thank you. Could they have tested me for this when I was pregnant? If this is genetic, why does April have this if neither me or my husband has the disorder?
In order for your daughter to have this disorder, you or your husband must be a carrier. They could have tested you for the presence of the Fragile X premutation. You or your husband could have the premutation, which would mark either of you as a carrier for this disorder.
What is a premutation?
With the FMR1 gene, there are 4 bases of DNA. So those are A, C, T, and G. And repeat and code for the FMRP protein. The premutation happens when CGG repeats more than the normal 30 times. So with the premutation, it'll be 55 to 200 repeats, where you should have only 30. Once the mutation reaches more than 200 repeats, though, it becomes a full mutation.
What will happen to my daughter if she does have this full mutation?
Seeing that she has 2 X chromosomes, there's a possibility that she may just be a carrier and won't display any of the characteristics of this disorder. And there's also the possibility that she may show signs and symptoms of this disorder depending on how large her mutation is.
What types of tests can test us all for this disorder?
I would say the best type of test for this disorder would be a Southern blot test. A genetic counselor could tell you a lot more about this test than I could, but I do know that this test determines whether or not the gene has a full mutation. It can also tell you its approximate size and if there's a mixture of different types of cells. This could help you with knowing the severity of your daughter's mutation.
I've never even heard of this disorder. Is it rare?
It's not very uncommon. About 1 in 4,000 males and about 1 in 8,000 females have this disorder. And every 1 in 51 females are a carrier, and every 1 in 268 males are a carrier for this disorder. Or you could also say that they have the premutation.
Okay. So is it curable?
Unfortunately, this disorder is not curable. Treatment's individualized and geared more towards the symptoms.
What are the signs and symptoms of this disorder?
The signs and symptoms of Fragile X syndrome are speech and language delay that usually begin around the age of 2. Some children will have mild to moderate intellectual disability. Sometimes there's autism, EDD, which is attention deficit disorder, and seizures. Some physical characteristics of the syndrome include a long, narrow face, large ears, a prominent jaw and forehead, unusually flexible fingers, flat feet, and these characteristics usually become more apparent with age. There's also some physical, psychological issues associated with this disorder. There's some learning disabilities, mood instabilities. As I said earlier, ADD. There's also ADHD, which is attention deficit hyperactive disorder. There'll be some anger issues with some. There's OCD, anxiety, sleep disorders. This can be a lot to handle in the family as well. It's a lot to take in, so it's important to address your psychological issues as well.
Yeah, I don't even know where to begin to think.
Tell me your thoughts about it. How do you cope with difficult news?
I think I just need time to process all of this right now.
I'm here to provide information and support you. Going through a genetic chromosome diagnosis can arouse feelings such as guilt, anger, fear, sorrow, blame, and shame. I want you to know that there are a variety of resources available for you and your family. There are some strong connection groups with other families that are going through similar things.
What are those resources?
I'll print you a list and give those out to you. These resources can also be shared with your other family members. It's important to make them aware of this genetic disorder as well, because it can affect all the other family members as well. Genetic counseling might be something that they're interested in if they're looking at future planning or see some of the characteristics of Fragile X syndrome in other family members. Do you have any other questions?
Yeah, actually, I forgot to ask you. So, if I have another child, will they be affected by this disorder as well?
It depends on if you or your husband are a carrier. If your husband is the carrier, he'll pass it on to 100% of his daughters because he only gives up his one X chromosome. And they'll be carriers or have the full mutation depending on how large the mutation is. If you're the carrier, there's a 50% chance that you will pass the carrier state or the affected state onto a male or female. If it's a female, you have more of a likelihood that it's going to be just the carrier state, whereas a male, it'll be more likely that he's affected because there's only one X chromosome with the male. These statistics are for every pregnancy, though, so it's a 50% chance with each one. So just because you had one doesn't mean that this won't happen in another pregnancy.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm going to take some time to process all of this and look at the resources that you gave me.
Okay, let me know if you need anything.
Thank you.